Hello, this is week 9 of the course, and this is my weekly summary. Let's see here. I started off this week with, responding to the students today and shift happens. I really liked both of these videos. I thought they were really interesting, and, I personally was able to relate, especially to the first video, relate to it, and I enjoyed reading everybody's comments and responding. It kind of seems like everybody was able to relate to these, and everybody kind of had the same reaction to them. So it was cool to read everyone's comments, but it seemed like we were all pretty much on the same page there. Basically, technology is becoming super advanced, and like what I posted, that we need to be able to find a balance and utilize technology when it's beneficial, but not let it not become dependent on it. So that's kind of what I talked about. Let's see, value of creative disobedience. Oh, you know what, let's go back. No, this is good. The value of creative disobedience. I really liked this article, and usually I have a hard time getting into the article, especially when they're kind of as long as this one was, but I really found this one very interesting, and I personally was really able to relate to this one. I know, let me find mine. I know, personally, I am able to learn better through hands-on experience, and if I try things on my own, basically it's better for me to try and succeed or fail on my own than somebody telling me something, because when someone tells me information, whether it's in a lecture or whatever it is, chances are I'm only going to retain it for a short amount of time before my brain basically decides to purge it. So I found that trying to figure things out on my own and kind of trying the best way for me to solve the problem, or how I would go about solving a problem, it really helps me retain the information much better. And so I personally can relate to this, and so I liked that this article was first of all talking about it, and second of all that they had research and had found evidence to support that this creativity is actually more beneficial for learning and developmental, from a developmental aspect. And so I agree that, as children in schools, they're really kind of at a disadvantage here, because they're just being taught how to learn and how to mimic, whatever it is the teacher told them. What is it called? This new, I can't think of what it's called, but this new way of, teaching that these teachers have to follow. And, the school that I work at, the kids, when they do their math, they have certain ways that they have to multiply out, or certain ways that they have to divide out, and they have to follow these certain steps, and their teacher won't accept it otherwise, when there's A, easier ways of doing it, and B, just other ways. And some children, they have a hard time understanding, this particular way, but these teachers are making them do it this way because this is what they're supposed to be following. And, you can't fit every child into the same mold. It just doesn't work that way. And so I think kind of taking that creativity away from them and letting them try and learn to problem solve on their own is really kind of putting them at a disadvantage. And really, I kind of find it ironic, because especially in school, kids are we're encouraging them to ask questions, to explore things on their own, encouraging them to problem solve and think for themselves, and we're trying to teach them all these things in school, but the way they're taught in school encourages the exact opposite. So I think that's kind of ironic that, they have such high standards for kids, and they're supposed to be able to do all this stuff on their own and think critically and problem solve and do all these things, but they're only taught how to mimic what they're told. And so they're kind of getting mixed signals here. So I think this article is really informative, and I hope this kind of gets the word out there, so maybe schools can start shifting toward maybe a different learning or teaching style, and they can kind of incorporate this. I really like this article, and be interested to go through and see everybody else's thoughts on it. I did that one. Alright, so the neat resource, the homeschooling and charter schools. Basically, I don't know a whole lot about charter schools and homeschooling and whatnot, but from, basically from like people that I've talked to, people are always kind of bashing on public schools and how they're terrible and how they'd never send their kid to a public school and yada yada yada. Well, I went to a public school all through my academic career, and I turned out just fine. And yes, although, like, I know people, they argue, like, well, they get more individualized attention in charter schools, or if I homeschool them, which is true, and that does help them, but how does that help them, when they get into the real world, or when they go to a university where they don't have that individualized attention? You haven't really taught them then how to kind of pull their own weight and, kind of handle things for themselves. So I think that's kind of a disadvantage for them. And like I said, I grew up going to a public school, and I don't think academically I was at a disadvantage at all. When I got to ASU, I met a lot of people who came from public schools, charter schools, private schools, homeschooled, whatever the case may be. A lot of people that I was in classes with, and academically, I wouldn't say that I was at a disadvantage. If anything, socially, I would have been at an advantage, and, kind of at the same level academically, because, here we are, we're all in the same class, same major. Ultimately, we all got to the same place. Now, just because they did more homework and they took more advanced classes doesn't mean that they actually learned more or learned better, because really you can only stuff so much information into a child's brain at a young age, so it doesn't matter how much you throw at them, they kind of seem to all be ending up in the same place. So yes, they could have there are pros and cons to both, obviously, to public schools, charter schools, whatever. There are pros and cons, but I can personally vouch for public schools and say that academically I don't feel like I was left behind at all. I don't feel like I was at a disadvantage. I am at the same level as all these as my fellow students who, were homeschooled, who attended charter schools, and, in high school especially, I had more social opportunities, I think, and more opportunities to participate in sports, which I think really helped me develop as a person and develop my social skills. And, I was very quiet and reserved when I was in school, but, being in sports and having all these social activities at my school, these opportunities, my personality, I was able to grow and learn how to kind of come out of my shell. And I think that's something that charter schools definitely lack, is sports and things like that for them to participate in. So I personally, like I said, can vouch for public schools, and I'm probably biased, but I would think I prefer public school. So that's kind of what I got on that. Project 13 and 14. Let's start out with 13. And you know what? I have my pictures all my pictures also on a Word document. Okay. So, first of all, for chapter 13, hello, where are my pictures? Okay. For chapter 13, here's the setup for it. And actually, the first setup Mandy and I used, there wasn't enough foil on it, so it wasn't working. So we definitely had to make sure you have enough foil for it to even work. Let me find. Okay, so first you had to install the software. I can't pronounce it. The capacitance. Anyway, you had to install it on your computer in order to do this one. This should be chapter 13. Anyway, okay, so then you had to build the sketch like usual and build the circuit again like usual. We adjusted the sensor, and with the temperature sensor, basically the longer you touch it, the more heat given to the system, and the light will come on. This LED light right here. That was a pretty straightforward Arduino. For chapter 14, chapter 14, Okay, again, we had to build the circuit, download the processing, and complete the sketch, and then you watch the colors change. So here are the pictures. These are the pictures of the different colors that we saw, a couple of them. The blue, the yellow, the red, and the pink color. Those are the colors that we got, and let's go back to this. We tried to switch the potentiometer out with a temperature resistor, which it worked and the colors changed drastically, but it got super hot, and so we didn't really try that one for very long, but the colors definitely changed. And here's a picture of it set up with the temperature sensor. Got super hot, we had to actually unplug it in order for it to cool off. And we had fun playing around with those this week. Let's see. This I think is on the wrong date, yes. And here we are at the end of the summary. So, yeah, basically that was it for this week. I enjoyed the Arduino projects as usual. I'm starting to get the hang of them finally, now that we're getting close to the end. And I really enjoyed reading everybody's discussion board posts, and I look forward to seeing what everyone has in store next week.